Welcome to True Crime Threads. Today we explore a chilling story of obsession and murder. Ava, a 22-year-old college student, seemed to have everything going for her. Intelligent, driven, and beautiful, she had recently started a relationship with Ivan, a 24-year-old businessman. The two quickly became inseparable, and their relationship appeared perfect. Ivan came from a wealthy family, and Ava was soon introduced to his father, William, a 48-year-old successful entrepreneur. From the moment they met, Ava felt a strong sense of admiration for William. He was everything Ivan was: confident, charismatic, and successful, but with an added layer of maturity and experience. William exuded a magnetic presence, one that Ava couldn't ignore. He seemed effortlessly commanding, and Ava found herself hanging on his every word. She often marveled at the way he carried himself, the authority in his voice, and the way people gravitated toward him. At first, Ava didn't think much of it. After all, she was in a committed relationship with Ivan, and she respected his father as a role model and mentor. But the more time she spent with William, the more she began to feel a deep and growing attraction to him. The family gatherings, dinners, and events at the mansion became regular occasions where Ava would find herself drawn to his presence. She noticed how William had a way of making her feel special, even when he wasn't doing anything out of the ordinary. Whether it was a subtle compliment or a shared moment of quiet understanding, Ava couldn't help but feel that there was more between them than just the formalities of a father and son relationship. As the weeks passed, Ava became more obsessed with these feelings. She started to question herself: was it normal to feel this way about Ivan's father? Was it just a fleeting crush, or was it something deeper? Her thoughts became consumed by William, and she began to fantasize about him more often. Every time she saw him, her heart would race. She'd catch herself staring at him for too long, only to quickly avert her gaze, embarrassed by her own thoughts. Ivan, on the other hand, remained blissfully unaware of the growing tension. He was focused on his career and the future, believing that everything between him and Ava was as strong as ever. He had no reason to doubt her loyalty or commitment. But little did he know, Ava's infatuation with his father was slowly consuming her, and it wouldn't be long before her feelings would evolve into something far darker than he could ever imagine. As time passed, Ava's attraction to William deepened. At first, she tried to ignore it, convincing herself that it was just a passing infatuation. But with every passing day, her feelings for him grew stronger. The more she was around him, the more she found herself captivated by his presence. There was something about William's confidence, his sharp intellect, and his effortless charm that made her feel both drawn to him and lost in admiration. She began to realize that it was no longer just a casual attraction, it was something more intense, something she couldn't control. Ava began to see their interactions differently. Every conversation with William felt charged with an unspoken tension, a connection she couldn't quite define. She started to dress more carefully whenever she knew she'd be seeing him, choosing outfits that she thought would catch his eye. Her casual meetings with Ivan and his father became less about the family dynamic and more about her own unspoken desires. She would look for excuses to stay longer when William was around, hoping to catch a moment alone with him, even if it was just a brief conversation. Ivan noticed subtle changes in Ava's behavior. At first, he thought nothing of it, perhaps she was stressed from her studies or had been busy with other commitments. But slowly, he began to feel that something was off. Ava seemed distracted at times, her mind appearing to be elsewhere even when they were together. The affection between them also seemed to fade, as if she were no longer as interested in him as she once was. Ivan tried to brush it off, assuming it was just a phase, but a small part of him began to worry. Ava's internal struggle became more pronounced. She found herself at a crossroads, torn between her growing feelings for William and her commitment to Ivan. She didn't want to hurt him, but her emotions were taking over. Every time she saw William, she felt an overwhelming pull toward him, and it became harder to ignore. Her thoughts were consumed by him, even when she was with Ivan. She began to fantasize about what it would be like to be with William, imagining their life together. In her mind, she saw a future where she was not just Ivan's girlfriend, but something more, something entirely different. One evening, when they were all together at the family mansion, Ava found herself alone with William for a brief moment. Her heart raced, and for the first time she didn't shy away from the electricity that seemed to hang in the air between them. There was an undeniable tension, and Ava couldn't help but wonder if he felt it too. She was no longer able to ignore the desire that had been building inside her for so long. It was during a private gathering at the mansion that everything changed. Ava had been invited to join Ivan and his father for a small family gathering, but it was different this time. Ivan had to step away for a business call, leaving Ava alone with William in the large, elegant living room. The moment was charged with tension, though neither of them acknowledged it openly. The quiet between them was thicker than usual, as if the air itself was holding its breath. William, always composed, began to talk about a recent business venture, but Ava found herself distracted, her mind wandering. Her heart beat faster as she found herself studying his every movement. The way he spoke, his deep voice resonating in the room, made her feel both comfortable and nervous. Ava had always admired his confidence, but now it felt like something more, something deeper and far more dangerous. Without fully understanding how it happened, Ava found herself leaning in closer, drawn by an invisible force. William, too, seemed to move closer, his eyes locking with hers in a way that made her pulse race. The subtle energy between them was undeniable, yet neither of them spoke of it. Ava couldn't help but feel that the connection they shared was more than just the passing familiarity of a father and his son's girlfriend. Without thinking, Ava's hand reached out, brushing against William's arm. His reaction was immediate. His eyes softened, and for a brief moment, the world seemed to disappear. Then, in an instant, they both moved toward each other. William's lips met hers in a kiss that felt like an explosion of everything Ava had been feeling, her desires, her obsession, her confusion, all channeled into that single moment. It was brief, yet intense, leaving them both breathless and shocked by what had just transpired. They pulled away quickly, the reality of what had happened crashing down on them. Ava's mind raced, unsure of how to process the sudden shift in their dynamic. William, on the other hand, appeared just as stunned, though he didn't pull away entirely. His face was unreadable, but Ava could see the subtle shift in his demeanor. Something had changed between them. They didn't speak of the kiss. Instead, they pretended like nothing had happened. But both of them knew the truth. Ava's feelings for William had crossed a line, one that could never be uncrossed. She found herself consumed by the memory of that kiss, replaying it over and over again in her mind. She couldn't stop thinking about him, couldn't shake the thought that their connection was something she couldn't ignore anymore. In that moment, Ava realized that this obsession had only just begun. As the affair continued, Ava's obsession with William grew to a point where it became all-consuming. At first, she told herself that the brief kiss had been a mistake, a momentary lapse in judgment. But with each passing day, the memory of that kiss lingered in her mind, fueling a desire that she couldn't suppress. She found herself wanting more time with William, more attention, more validation of her feelings. It wasn't enough to just have a fleeting moment with him anymore. Ava wanted all of him. She began to grow increasingly frustrated with the secrecy of their relationship. The hidden meetings, the stolen moments, while thrilling at first, soon felt like a prison to her. She couldn't stand the idea of William going back to his family, to his life with Ivan, while she remained on the outside, craving his presence. She had convinced herself that William was the key to her happiness, that everything would fall into place if only they could be together without the barriers of lies and deception. Her frustration grew into resentment. Ava couldn't understand why William wouldn't leave his family for her. She had made it clear how deeply she felt about him, how much she wanted him, yet he refused to make any promises. His responses were always cautious, measured. He claimed that the affair was just a brief indulgence, something that couldn't evolve into anything permanent. But to Ava, this was no longer a casual fling. It was everything. The more he resisted, the more determined she became to make him see that they belonged together. One night, after an argument with Ivan about her increasingly cold behavior, Ava couldn't take it anymore. She felt trapped in a life that wasn't hers, caught between the man she loved and the man she desired in a way she couldn't explain. She needed to make William choose her, to make him understand how deeply she felt, to make him see that they were meant to be together. She waited for the right moment. Ivan was away on a business trip, and the house was quiet. Ava made her way to the mansion, her mind racing with thoughts of what she was about to do. When she arrived, William was alone in the living room, reading through some papers. There was no small talk, no pretensions. Ava went straight to the point. She told him that she couldn't continue living this way, that she needed more from him. She pleaded with him to leave his family and start a life with her. But William's response was not what she expected. Calm and composed, he refused. He told her that they couldn't be together, that their relationship was an illusion, and that it was time for them to part ways. Ava's heart shattered, but instead of breaking down in tears, something inside her snapped. His refusal felt like a betrayal, one she couldn't accept. In a blind, overwhelming rage, she grabbed the nearest knife from the kitchen, and without a second thought, plunged it into William. When Ivan returned from his trip, the last thing he expected was to find the police at his father's mansion. He had been away for only a few days, handling business matters, and the phone call he received that evening left him in a state of shock. The officers informed him that his father, William, had been found dead. At first, Ivan thought it was some sort of tragic accident, perhaps a heart attack or an unfortunate fall. But as he arrived at the mansion, the grim reality of the situation began to unfold. The police were already at the scene, investigating the circumstances of William's death. Ivan was taken into a quiet room and asked to wait. His mind raced, confused by the sudden and inexplicable tragedy. He couldn't understand what had happened. William had been in perfect health, and nothing had seemed out of the ordinary during their last conversation. It wasn't until later that evening that Ivan learned the truth. After a thorough investigation, the police discovered the shocking reality behind his father's death. The evidence led them straight to Ava. Her fingerprints were found on the murder weapon, and the police soon uncovered a series of messages and interactions that pointed to her involvement in the affair with William. Ava's obsession with William had not only been a hidden part of their relationship, but also the catalyst for his death. The investigation revealed the dark truth. Ava, in a moment of overwhelming frustration and jealousy, had murdered William. The fight between them had escalated quickly, and in her blind rage, she had grabbed a knife and killed him. The police found a trail of messages between her and William, including the final encounter that led to his death. Ava's obsession had spiraled completely out of control, and the resulting violence was the tragic consequence. Ivan was left devastated, torn between his love for Ava and the horrifying truth of what she had done. The realization that the woman he had trusted, the woman he thought he would build a future with, was capable of such violence shattered him. He never suspected that she could be capable of murder, let alone that she had been carrying on an affair with his father behind his back. The betrayal was more than he could bear. Ava was arrested and taken into custody. As the details of the affair and the murder came to light, the shocking nature of the crime sent ripples through the community. Ava's obsession with William had led to a deadly conclusion, and in the end, it destroyed not only a family but also the future that she had once imagined with Ivan.